Joining me live is the Greens Housing Spokesman, the MP for Griffith, Max Chandler-Mather. Max, thanks for your time. Let's start with this letter that you wrote to Clare O'Neil, the new Housing Minister, where you asked to meet her and, quote, reverse the government's decision to refuse to negotiate with the Greens on housing. You said, Minister, you would know as well as I do what Labor has offered so far will not even touch the sides of this crisis. You know as well as I do that when Labor talks about the billions for housing, only the $3 billion the Greens secured in negotiations is actual new direct investment in social housing. Are you surprised she didn't meet you after that tone you struck in the letter?
Deeply disappointed, and it demonstrates again that Labor hasn't changed any of their failed policies on housing. All they've done is they've decided to have a new salesperson. And the reality is, if they continue down this path, that's more single mums evicted onto the street because they can't afford the rent, more young people giving up on ever being able to afford to buy a home, more rough sleepers on our streets and tents popping up in parks across the country. I mean, this is becoming a bit of a sick joke that we have a Labor government that are giving $165 billion in tax handouts to property investors and can't even negotiate with the Greens to spend a little bit more on public and affordable housing or do something for renters or phase out tax handouts for property investors. Look, the new minister claims that she cares about people doing it tough. Well, walk the walk. Demonstrate that you care and actually do something practical for the millions of people getting smashed by a housing crisis that under Labor has only gotten worse.
Well, this is what Clare O'Neil told The Australian on the weekend. She said, quote, rent freezes, which is what you want, sound nice, but all the experts have told us it would tank supply, drive up rents and make more people homeless. The opposition and Greens are more interested in a debate in Parliament House than houses for Australians. She says Labor has announced record spending and investment to address the housing crisis, $32 billion, and won't change negative gearing. What do you make of all that?
Well, firstly, the so-called experts you're talking about are people like the Property Council who represent property developers. Of course, they're not going to like a freeze or cap on rent increases because it affects their profit margins, ultimately. We do know a freeze and cap on rent increases works. For one, in the government's own reports, the region with the lowest rent increases in the world right now is Europe. And that is the place with the widest use of caps on rent increases. Secondly, the only direct investment on public and community housing right now was negotiated by the Greens, the $3 billion. We've proved we can negotiate, but we're not just going to pass through bills. The one bill that they want to pass at the moment, build to rent, well, we revealed in a Senate inquiry is going to give tax handouts to property developers to build homes they otherwise already would have built and then charge rents at up to 20% above market rent. I mean, why is it that they are more willing to give tax handouts to property developers and investors than they are to put money on the table to directly build public and affordable housing? I mean, we have a plan before Parliament right now that we get the government, set up a government-owned developer, go and build hundreds of thousands of good quality homes and then sell and rent them at prices people can actually afford. It's pretty practical. And we heard Murray Watt before talk about relying on private property developers. Well, isn't that convenient? I mean, really, private property developers have helped cause this crisis. They're the ones that jack up house prices and rents. They're the ones that make big, healthy profit margins. And they're sitting pretty at the moment. Meanwhile, the government wants to give them more tax handouts.
But why?
We know what works.
Why is the federal government in charge of a rent freeze? It's a state responsibility. You say in your letter, we'll convene a national cabinet, but they can't make the states do it, can they?
Well, we've seen the federal government play hardball with the states on all sorts of issues, but all of a sudden when it comes to protecting people from being evicted into homelessness, they're weak and it's impossible for them to do anything. Look, they could go to National Cabinet right now, slap money on the table and incentivise and coordinate a freeze and cap on rent increases. There are millions of people out there right now, a lot of renters who are one rent increase away from more financial stress or at worst, eviction onto the streets. I door-knocked a single mum yesterday who said she'd have to move if she got another big rent increase and she doesn't know where she'd move. I door-knocked a pensioner who is on a fixed income and said his biggest frustration and the thing that's making it tough for him at the moment is rents are going up, but his pension isn't going up by as much. Now, these are people, everyday people right now, who Labor could help if they freeze and cap rent increases.
All right, what happens? I mean, you want a rent freeze for 2 years. What happens at the end of the 2 years, as far as you're concerned?
So our proposal is we transition into an ongoing cap on rent increases. of 2% every 2 years. That way, we ensure that there are rent increases, but they're fair and small, and they give renters a chance to catch a breather. We know even under our plan, wages would not catch up to rents until about 2029, compared to the last massive round of rent increases we've seen over the last few years. All we're saying is 1/3 of this country rents, and right now Labor wants to lock in unlimited rent increases, and the human consequences are devastating. They're devastating. How is it fair that for the millions of people right now who have been locked out of home ownership because Labor won't phase out tax handouts for property investors, how is it fair they're stuck renting, and then at the end of every lease, they have no say or power to negotiate the size of their next rent increase? What happens if that pensioner cops a $100 rent increase and then is sleeping on the streets or sleeping in their car? What then? And I mean, we're a wealthy enough country, I think, that we can find a balance in our housing system that ensures renters aren't screwed over by massive rent increases, which, by the way, are right now increasing at close to double inflation. They're driving inflation.
Indeed. What's the Greens' stance on migration then, which seems to be a key driver of this crisis?
Well, we don't agree that migration is a primary cause of this housing crisis. For one, since the beginning of COVID to now, the number of new migrant households is roughly around half the number of new homes that Australia's built. We've built more homes than migrants have come to this country over that period. The issue is that, one, we have completely uncapped rent increases. Two, the government is not building public housing the way it used to. Again, we have a plan we're willing to work with the government to implement, to set up a government developer to build hundreds of thousands of good quality homes, to rent and sell at prices people can afford. And three, the government keeps giving property investors massive tax handouts that allow them to go to auctions and beat out young people on and bid up the price of housing.
Wanting the government to be a developer, a major developer, you know, as a minor party, don't have to worry about things like debt and deficit, do you? Do you concede that?
Well, actually, we had our plan costed by the Parliamentary Budget Office. Over the next 10 years, it would cost roughly about $28 billion to implement this plan. That would be the impact on the underlying cash balance. And the reason that's actually quite affordable, that would be to build 710,000 good quality homes, is because our proposal for the developer is we lift the income restrictions on that government-built housing. So a teacher could be living next door to a cleaner, next door to maybe even an engineer, next door to someone on income benefits, creating that social diversity that used to exist in Australian public housing. But even where rents are capped, we generate a good, healthy amount of rental and sales income that helps offset the cost of the plan, and we can put back into building more good quality housing. That's actually how public housing used to work in Australia. It's how it works around the world.
The help to buy, it sounds like there's no way on earth you'll pass that. That's where the government would have equity in a house. You're arguing that the legislation would drive up house prices. Fair to say there's not much the government could offer that would get you to support that. And secondly, does that mean you'd oppose the Coalition's proposal to allow first home buyers to access their super for the same reason, that it might drive up prices?
Well, what we've said to Labor is we're willing to work with them on the help to buy legislation if they come to the table on phasing out the tax handouts, negative gearing and the capital gains tax discount to property investors that deny millions of renters the chance to buy a home. The cost of those tax handouts over the next 10 years will be $165 billion to the federal budget. Now, just for a moment, imagine if we phased out even some of those and invested them in building good quality government-built housing again. We would solve the housing crisis in under the decade. Now, it would also mean that a lot of people, and I'm sure some of your listeners who might have kids who are struggling to get into the housing market, well, it means they could go to an auction and finally buy a house and no longer be humiliated by a property investor with tax handouts in their pocket from this Labor government.
And what about the Coalition's plan?
Yes. With regards to that plan, no, look, again, just putting more cash into the housing market drives up house prices. The reality is the more money you give people to go and bid up the price of housing, the higher house prices will be. And if house prices keep increasing, we're going to deny an entire generation the chance to ever buy a home. There's a fundamental break going on at the moment. We have got people graduating from university with massive student debts they're struggling to pay off, unable to get a bank loan because the bank won't give them a loan because this government won't do anything meaningful to wipe student debt. And then when they finally maybe go to be able to buy a house, well, then they're outbid by a property investor who bids up the price.
Max Chandler-Mather, I understand the point you're making, but I just want to squeeze in a couple of other issues here. Are the Greens likely to support the government on the CFMEU legislation they're trying to bring in this week?
Well, they haven't shown us the legislation. This is extraordinary. They're going around saying this is a test for the Parliament and for the Greens. They haven't shown anyone, as far as we know. They certainly haven't shown us.
What's your instinct on it, though?
The bill or the legislation.
What's your instinct on it, though?
Well, our instinct. Well, this is absurd. The government's trying to kick off a debate about a piece of legislation. They won't show any of the parliamentarians they're asking to pass. I mean, and this is typical of the government, by the way. I've only been in Parliament for one term. The number of times they play politics like this, they try and leverage the power that they have as the government, refuse to show people pieces of legislation. It's frankly not clear if they're at all fit to govern at the moment, because this happens also in housing, where we see farcical moves from them to introduce housing legislation that they have applied no scrutiny to.
Okay.
Aren't
nearly out of time. Nearly out of time. I was just asking what your instinct was on that particular issue. Now, look, just finally, the Greens, I guess I've covered them since they've been in the federal parliament. It seems to me they're a more radical political party than they were. You are. There's the issue with the Middle East. You wouldn't even vote for a Senate motion condemning vandalism of Australian military monuments in Canberra in the last sittings. When you campaign for the Greens and you've made a success of your campaign for renters, is it time for a name change? Because by no means do you speak much on environmental issues these days.
Well, we've run a big campaign to stop opening up new coal and gas mines and investing in publicly owned renewable energy. Secondly, I don't agree with the radical moniker. Take a freeze on rent increases or the public developer to build good quality homes or phasing out tax handouts for property investors. Every poll demonstrates that a vast majority of the country agrees with our position, 70 to 80% of people. So unless you're calling the 70 to 80% of people agree with us in this country radicals as well, then I wouldn't agree. Finally, with regards to the Middle East, well, our position on that is the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. And right now we have a country who has bombed 10 schools since July, killing over 40,000 people right now, committing mass heinous war crimes and carrying out a genocide. All we've said on that is the government should take sanctions out against that country. And every time Israel carries out those massacres, they look around the world and they don't get any consequences from countries like Australia. Well, they embolden to act again. And that makes us all less safe. That makes us all less safe.
Just a yes or no answer.
More dangerous.
Just a yes or no answer. Yes or no. Do you believe in a two-state solution?
Well, we've said that what we want is a self-determined process for Palestinians and Israelis. We're not here to dictate how that process goes.
All right. Max Chandler-Mather, thanks so much for your time.